your prompt, and then you'll just go ahead and accept that if you're okay with that. Thank you so much.
Bueno, no hay nadie ahorita, ¿no?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the 2021 Consortium for Healthier Miami-Dade virtual annual event and awards ceremony. We're going to be getting started in just a couple of minutes. And if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box and share which organization you're from, we would definitely like to see where everybody's joining us in from today. Thank you so much for joining. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joel, for joining us. Allison, Maria, thank you again for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started in 2 minutes. And thank you again for joining us. Good morning, it's Lara. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2021 Consortium for Healthier Miami-Dade virtual annual event and awards ceremony. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will be getting started very shortly. And just as a reminder, all participants are in view and listen only mode. And if you're having any technical issues, you can definitely put them in the chat box. And Tamia Medina is our point of contact, and her email address has been shared in the chat box. And thank you so much for everybody introducing yourself. We are getting those messages in. I do see Kathy from Baptist, Susan from the Office of the Mayor, Natushka from the Florida Department of Health. Thank you all again for joining us. It is 10 o'clock. I am now going to go ahead and turn it over to our MC today for our annual event and awards ceremony. Thank you so much.
Good morning and welcome to the 2021 Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade virtual annual event and awards ceremony. This is a very exciting time for us as this is the first time we celebrate this event virtually and have partnered with the Florida Worksite Wellness Awards. My name is Edwin Odell and I am currently an adjunct professor at the University of Miami School of Communication. I have had a 33-year career in television, and now I'm giving back to the community, training university level student to-be broadcasters. It is truly my pleasure being here this morning to celebrate this grand occasion. At this time, I would like to go over a few housekeeping reminders. All participants are in view and listen mode only. There will be no cameras or audio options. You can type your questions in the chat box, which will be monitored to assist with any questions you might have throughout the event. Finally, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please contact Tamia Medina at tamia.medina, that's TAMIA.medina, MEDINA, at floridahealth.gov. We have also included this information in the chat box as well. We want to take a moment to share a big thank you to our premier level sponsor this year, West Kendall Baptist Hospital. They will share a few special remarks with us later in the program. We began our time together with a warm welcome from Mrs. Ann Karen Weller, Assistant Community Health Nurse Director at the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. As Director of the Office of Community Health and Planning, she has been a part of the consortium since its inception. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Weller.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being part of this special occasion. My name is Karen Weller, and as mentioned, I am the Assistant Community Health Nursing Director for the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. I would like to convey to all of you, especially our executive board and committee members of the consortium, my sincerest gratitude for all the work that has been accomplished since 2003. The Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County proudly hosts this ceremony since we have learned that by convening community stakeholders to prioritize the needs of the community and to leverage resources, we can better build an integrated system to achieve health equity and build more sustainability in our community. The history of the consortium is filled with important moments, stories, and meaningful events and experiences that have shaped this initiative into what it is today. The Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County recognized the need for the community to join forces to combat the increasing rates of chronic disease in the county. In September 2003, a meeting of community partners was called and the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade was established. This is the year we celebrate more than 900 members and 400 plus organizations that have contributed to our mission to be a major catalyst for healthy living in Miami-Dade through the support and strengthening of sustainable policies, systems, and environments. We are certainly happy that you were able to attend this event with us today. We are deeply grateful and honored to be able to work by your side, hand in hand, serving our community to become healthier. Your support and relentless work make all the difference. From all of us at the department, we extend to you a warm and sincere thank you. Your continued involvement will ensure that the consortium continues to have an impact in our community. As the lead organization for the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County is responsible for the operational management of the consortium and provides guidance, funding, leadership, structure, and staffing. I would like to take this moment to recognize the staff members from the Office of Community Health and Planning who have served as liaisons and active partners in this endeavor. Your valued contributions have allowed us to move forward. Thank you. We would not be here without your efforts. For those of you who are not yet members of the consortium, we would be thrilled to have you join us. Our vision of a healthy environment, healthy lifestyles, healthy community is only made possible through the engagement of our community members and partners. I encourage you to visit our site at healthymiamidade.org upon the conclusion of this event to obtain all the resources. Once again, thank you for your support and partnership. We recognize and appreciate your role and look forward to all that we will continue to accomplish together. Now I will turn it back over to Mr. Odell.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Essenia Bialta, who is currently the Administrator Health Officer for the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. Without further ado, here is Dr. Bialta.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ojo, for that warm introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating with us during this momentous occasion. It has been a great honor to be part of this journey. The Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade has truly come a long way. Created back in 2003, the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade is a network of partners committed to prevention, focused health efforts, and collaboration to ensure that Miami-Dade County residents can live longer, healthier, and happier lives. To commemorate this past year and the collective impact of the community, we have an innovative and exciting virtual annual event and award ceremony plan. Today's event will highlight the initiatives promoted by the consortium and its partners that contribute to decreasing chronic disease caused by health disparities. These accomplishments and highlights will address health equity, worksite wellness, community linkage initiatives, nutrition, tobacco policies, and physical fitness. Later, during the Florida Worksite Wellness Awards, we will listen and learn about and highlight organizations with workplace wellness programs and whose employees have achieved positive health outcomes. The consortium has served Miami-Dade County residents by helping create and support policy, system, and environmental changes. Since its beginning, the consortium has had many accomplishments in advancing the quality of life and health of our community. Some of these examples include when Miami-Dade County and the consortium embraced the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Framework, and through its efforts to ensure that all residents can have the opportunity to live longer, healthier, and more productive lives. The consortium has been used for public health accreditation, also known as FAB, as an example of partnerships that was able to implement and evaluate interventions that have made an impact in our community. As community, we have completed 3 cycles of mobilizing for action through planning and partnership, known as the MAP process, and most recently developed the 2019-2024 Community Health Improvement Plan, known as the CHIP, tailored to meet the real health needs and concerns of the community. Through this MAP process, community partners identified health equity as a strategic health priority area. And for the first time, health equity was added to the local Community Health Improvement Plan, as well as the consortium strategic plan and community work plans. These are just a few key highlights as to how the consortium has allowed us to bring a diverse group of partners together. Many community partners are present today, representing different agencies and organizations across various sectors, such as state and local government agencies. We have healthcare providers, employers, community groups, universities and schools, nonprofit organizations, and advocacy groups. Each of you contribute to the health and well-being of our Miami-Dade community in some way, shape, or form. We recognize that a cross-sector collaborative effort helped us to implement comprehensive strategies. We helped align efforts and avoid duplication of efforts to increase efficiencies. As a result, we've improved our communication and we reached across our public health system and further aligned to accomplish our public health goals. The department created the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, a truly collaborative initiative that united contrasting organizations to work in partnership for the benefit of our community. I am confident that our consortium will continue its commitment to address gaps in public health, healthcare, and creating conditions for everyone to achieve the most optimal health possible. The world in which we find ourselves today is very different from last year, and we continue to change and evolve. I also wanted to take this moment at this time to thank all of our first responders, our medical professionals, our scientists, and activated staff members in our public health workforce for their role during the COVID-19 pandemic. Your hard work and dedication have not gone unnoticed and has been a key to reducing the spread of COVID-19 in our community. I encourage you to recognize the new circumstances and adapt accordingly to address emerging health demands, minimize current as well as looming pitfalls, and take advantage of new and promising opportunities. Our journey to continue making our community healthier is not done. As a community, we still have work to do. In the years to come, I can envision the following from you, our consortium champions. Continue conversations on ways to invest in health and working to produce these tangible results within our community. Build stronger relationships which break down health disparities, these barriers, and further align our efforts. We want to work and head towards the same direction with the entire public health system, referencing one community health assessment and one community health plan. And also to enhance our resilience in the face of emerging infrastructure and system changes. and improve the efficiencies, improve the effectiveness and performance of our public health system, to improve the health of all of our residents. Thank you so much for your dedication to this worthwhile endeavor and with being with us here today. I assure that our community's best days are still ahead in this journey. I will now turn it back over to Mr. O'Dell. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I would now like to introduce and welcome our premier sponsor this year, Michelle Mejia from West Kendall Baptist Hospital, to share a few words with us.
Thank you, Mr. O'Dell, and good morning to everyone. I do want to thank the consortium for all the amazing work that you do. So Baptist Health and West Kendall Baptist Hospital is pleased to be the premier sponsor of this year's annual event. And thank you for allowing me a few minutes to talk up Baptist Health and some of the amazing work that we're doing. Baptist Health is a non-for-profit healthcare system consisting of 11 hospitals and many physician practices, outpatient centers, and freestanding EDs. And we cover the territory between the Florida Keys all the way to West Palm Beach. Baptist Health also has a telemedicine platform called Care on Demand, and it really helps to meet consumers and patients where they are. So West Kendall Baptist, which is where I am, is a community hospital, and we're located on the western edge of the county. This year, we celebrated our 10th year anniversary, and it is the residents of this community that asked and petitioned and wrote letters to Baptist Health asking them to build a hospital here. And not only did Baptist Health answer the call, but we realized immediately the enormous responsibility that we had to not just provide great quality care within our hospital, but we had a responsibility to take care of the community and address all aspects that affect health. And that is how and why we created Healthy West Kendall, to be that initiative that looks through every single lens and try to be that anchor institution that responds to those needs. And because of the foundation and the work that Healthy West Kendall had achieved towards building a healthy community, Healthy West Kendall was selected a few years ago to be part of an inaugural cohort for a national collaborative called Communities of Excellence 2026. And to tell you a little bit about Communities of Excellence, it has adopted the use of the Malcolm Baldrige framework for performance excellence. And this framework has 6 categories, and it includes learning how to build a cohesive community leadership group, how to create a common shared governance and vision, and equally important, how to understand the needs of a community so that we could be more intent on the initiatives and on the efforts. So Communities of Excellence uses 4 drivers, and those are economic vitality, education, quality of life, and safety. And so these are the 4 lenses by which we organize all of our work. But I have to say, we're not doing this alone by any means. The Florida Department of Health, the Health Council of South Florida, the United Way, the Miami-Dade County Office of the Mayor, the Health Foundation, and so many more organizations have come together to help realize this vision. But in order to take care of the community, we understand we first need to take care of our employees. And Baptist Health has 24,000 employees. So Wellness Advantage is the premier wellness program that Baptist Health uses. And the approach focuses on addressing the total wellness of our employee population. And it's based on 6 dimensions, which include physical and intellectual, emotional, social, occupational, environmental. And it's multifaceted. And we can understand that with COVID and everything being unpended, Wellness Advantage had to adapt as well and had to meet employees where they were. And so by harnessing all these virtual platforms, they were able to take emotional support, fitness classes, all kinds of different activities and programs into the homes, into the offices, and really tailor them to the needs of the employees at that moment. So as we look for the future, I'm sure Wellness Advantage is not only going to continue to grow, but it's going to adapt to the different hybrid models that are being used today. And West Kendall Baptist actually celebrating its 10th year anniversary. We have outgrown our physical plant here, and so we are undergoing an expansion that will increase the amount of inpatient beds and emergency room capacity. And our goal is to better serve every patient that comes into our doors. And our overall goal is to keep them as healthy as possible so that we can keep them out of the hospital. And with that, Mr. Odell, I pass it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Michelle, for your message and support on behalf of West Kendall Baptist Health. Today, we will hear from two amazing speakers from the University of Miami and the University of South Florida. Let me introduce you to our first speaker today. Dr. Isaac Prelintensky is the inaugural holder of the Irwin and Barbara Mautner Chair in Community Wellbeing at the University of Miami, where he also served as Dean of Education and Human Development and Vice Provost for Institutional Culture. He has published 12 books and over 130 articles and chapters dealing with community psychology and community well-being. His interests are in the connections among individuals, organizational, and communal well-being. He is currently exploring relationships among wellness, fairness, and worthiness. He is the recipient of the 2014 Lifetime Achievement Award in Prevention by the Society for Counseling Psychology Division 17 of the American Psychological Association. Excuse me. Okay. He is also the recipient of the 2011 Distinguished Contribution to Theory and Research Award of the Community Psychology Division of APA. In addition, he received the Seymour Saracen Award and the John Califat Award for the practice of community psychology from the same division of APA. Isaac is a fellow of the American Psychological Association and of the American Educational Research Association. In 2002, he was a visiting fellow of the British Psychological Association. Isaac is also an experienced facilitator of group processes and has considerable expertise in partnering with community organizations to advance the common goal. His latest book is How People Matter, Why It Affects Health, Happiness, Love, Work, and Society. Without further ado, I will now turn it over to Dr. Prelintensky.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you today. And my presentation is about understanding and promoting well-being in the workplace. And today we're going to be covering 5 topics: well-being, well-being at work, workplaces that promote well-being, and then we're going to be looking at individual actions we can all take, as well as workplace actions. So the first topic is well-being. So what is well-being? Well, it really consists of 2 elements: pleasure, which is about positive emotions, enjoyment, and life satisfaction on one hand, but also about purpose, which is about meaning, mattering, and values such as peace and justice. So we heard from Michelle Mejia before about a multidimensional model of well-being at Baptist, and I'm pleased to share that our approach to well-being is similar. My research team and we developed a model of well-being, which is also multidimensional. We call it ICOPE, which stands for Interpersonal, Community, Occupational, physical, psychological, and economic well-being. And what we know about well-being is that all these domains are always interacting with one another. We know, for example, that the psychological well-being improves physical well-being. And we also know that community well-being and occupational well-being improve your psychological well-being. So there are many ways in which all these domains interact with one another, and it's really important to invest in all of them and not to neglect any one of those. So in summary, we can say that wellness or well-being is about the experiences of pleasure and purpose, because we need positive emotions, but also meaning in life over time in all these domains of life. So we're seeing that well-being consists of having good emotions, positive experiences, joy, fun, but also making meaning and helping other people, helping ourselves, and finding values in life in all these domains. So now we can say a few words about well-being at work. So we conducted a few studies which really are in line with a lot of prior research, indicating that when our employees, when people feel valued and have an opportunity to add value at work, they experience higher levels of well-being. So feeling valued and adding value are part of feeling like we matter, part of worthiness. So this is a very important effect of feeling valued and adding value. The more people pay attention to us at work, the more people make us feel a valuable member of the team, and the more we have opportunities to contribute to the common good, the higher our levels of wellness. But there is another aspect, which is fairness. The more we're treated with fairness and respect in the workplace, in our family, and in the community, the better off we all are. So now let's have a quick look at the workplaces that promote well-being. So a culture of mattering or a culture of well-being really consists of three important elements. A workplace must be supportive of its employees. When employees are having a challenging time, when they're having family issues, it's very important for employers to exercise care and compassion. All employees want to have an experience of kindness and compassion from the workplace. That's number one. That's good, but that's not enough. We also want to work in a place that is effective, where we deliver our services with high quality and levels of excellence, because we all want to be part of a team with high expectations. So it must be supportive, the culture must be also effective, but it also should be reflective. And reflective means growing and learning from experience, keeping up with the times. What is it that we can do differently in this organization? How can we achieve higher levels of quality and excellence? So we call this in Spanish SER. As many of you know, SER means to be. So to be a healthy culture, we must promote a workplace climate of support, effectiveness, and reflection. So what is a climate that is supportive? Well, people feel appreciated, there is affirmation, and we have a psychological sense of safety. We have a sense of control over our jobs, and we also have voice and choice. When decisions are made in the workplace, we are consulted, we are a part of the decision making. So many studies have shown that the more we have voice and choice in decisions affecting our lives, the healthier we are. So what about an effective culture? An effective culture is one that is task-oriented, well-organized, it's accountable, where people have good communication, and where we evaluate what we do. Now, finally, reflective cultures, as I was saying before, are cultures where people can take risks and they are not penalized if they make a mistake. These organizations promote innovation, they're stimulating. All of us want to be part of a team that is innovating and trend-setting. Now, unfortunately, very few workplaces in the US and around the world, for that matter, achieve a culture that is supportive, effective, and reflective. And as a result, many employees feel disengaged. They don't feel valued. They don't have enough opportunities to add value. So in the US, 70% of American workers are not engaged or actively disengaged from the workplace. That is really is an urgent situation that requires immediate attention. So what do we know from engagement and productivity and outcomes? So Gallup, which is really a leading organization in terms of workplace well-being and engagement, they conducted several meta-analyses, and I'm just here summarizing the latest one in 2016, where they had a huge sample consisting of approximately 1.9 million people in 82,000 different business units in 73 countries across multiple industries. And what did they find? Well, their research shows that there is a very big difference between organizations at the top quartile of engagement and at the bottom quartile of engagement. So those at the top are organizations where people feel valued and have opportunities for growth, to contribute, and to progress. So those at the top are achieving much better results in terms of fewer degrees of absenteeism, less turnover, fewer accidents, better healthcare, better patient safety, and customer metrics and productivity are much higher. So this is why it's so important to create a culture of mattering, of worthiness, where all the employees feel like they matter. If we don't do that, we can see the price tag on the screen. The cost to the economy of actively disengaged workers is about $500 billion. Now, let's say a few words about individual actions. What is it that we as leaders, managers can do? And what is it that we as individual employees can do at work to improve our own well-being and the well-being of the people we care about? So first of all, I want to mention this online program we created. It's free, it's available to everyone. It's fundforwellness.com. And we conducted 2 randomized control trials of this program, which is aimed at engaging with wellness topics in a fun and entertaining way. And university employees at the University of Miami have been using this as part of their benefits package. And the more they play, the more they are rewarded, and there are financial rewards associated with this. What did we find? Well, our studies show that people who engage with Fund for Wellness to improve their ICOP well-being, interpersonal, community, occupational, physical, psychological well-being, they report higher levels of well-being, better physical health, better mental health, higher degrees of self-efficacy, and they also tell us that they engage in more actions to get healthy. So ours is just one program, there are others, but I encourage you to check out these programs because they really make a difference. Ours is free and accessible to everyone. So now the question is, how do we promote personal well-being? What do we do? What's the engine of change that we have used in our research and in Fund for Wellness? Well, we use 7 proven drivers of change. We call them Bet I Can, which is an acronym that stands for leveraging behaviors, emotions, thoughts, interactions, context, awareness, and next steps. And I'm going to say a few words about each one of them. So what we teach in our books, in our research, and in our online program is how to maximize our behaviors and our emotions and our thoughts to get healthier. So we start teaching people how to set a goal and how to create a positive habit. So we start with behavior, not only because it's the first letter of our acronym, but because improving well-being in any of these domains usually requires action. To quote the Dalai Lama, happiness, it's not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. So whether you wish to improve your eating habits, exercise, whether you want to be more productive at work, or have more fulfilling relationships with your family, this typically requires a behavioral change. So we focus on how to set realistic goals and how to pursue them. It is also crucial to turn a small change in behavior into a habit that becomes an automatic routine in our lives. So we teach people how to set a goal and how to build on a small change to create an enduring habit. Now, next, we teach people how to both manage negative emotions and cultivate positive emotions. So what can you do to improve your own well-being? So it's important to understand that it's not enough to cope with negative emotions. We also have to cultivate positive emotions. And we do this, for example, through nurturing positive relationships, practicing gratitude, following your passions, building on your strengths, and savoring good moments in life. We know that these are all proven ways of cultivating positivity. But we know that managing negative emotions is important. We usually don't like negative emotions very much, but they are an inevitable part of life. Everyone experiences them, and we can't really escape them. In fact, when we actively fight and resist how we feel at any given moment, we make things worse for ourselves. Remember, whatever we resist tends to persist. Instead, we can learn to make room for negative emotions and accept them without judgment, which is what mindfulness is all about. We can also learn to treat ourselves with kindness and compassion, just as we would treat a friend who is suffering. Remember, what we can feel, we can heal, especially if we are kind to ourselves when we're struggling. Now, it's also important to challenge negative assumptions about ourselves. So how we think and what we say to ourselves impacts how we feel and what we do. We often take our thoughts and our assumptions at face value and see them as an accurate representation of reality. But remember, thoughts are just thoughts, and our assumptions and conclusions about ourselves are not necessarily accurate. In fact, automatic thoughts, especially those that we have when we have dark moods, are prone to errors. So we teach people to be mindful and identify their thoughts and self-talk. So rather than get carried away with negative thoughts about ourselves, such as I'm not a worthy person or I'm not good enough, we can learn to examine our thoughts and ask, is this really reasonable? What is the evidence for me thinking that I am not a good enough person? So I think it's important to challenge and change our relationship to our thoughts by acknowledging that these are thoughts and these are not actual real events. So we can challenge bad thoughts and we can write a better story about ourselves. It's also really important to pay attention to life and what we're doing. Remember that people are happiest not necessarily when they're having a grand time, eating ice cream or chocolate or doing something extravagant, but rather when they are paying attention to whatever it is they're doing. So here we have a cartoon when somebody goes to heaven and when they meet their creator, the creator says, actually, you had a pretty great life, but you were looking down at your phone and you missed it. So it's really important that we be present, and especially when we interact with other people. We call this connect and communicate. We teach individuals how to be good listeners, how to be compassionate to one another, and how to celebrate each other's accomplishments. It's important to be supportive when somebody else is struggling, to be a good listener, non-judgmentally, but it's also important to maximize opportunities for celebration when something is going well. We teach people to pay attention to cues in the environment. If you want to change how you eat, you have to create an architecture at home that is designed to improve healthy eating, as opposed to just putting chocolate, cookies, or junk food on the counter, so when you're hungry, you just gravitate to bad foods. It's important to pepper your environment with healthy cues. We also think it's really important to understand, to know ourselves, what are our hot buttons, how do we change, and it's always important to have a good plan, a smart plan that is specific, measurable, achievable, etc., and we help people to stick with a plan. So this is what we teach, and it has been proven to help individuals improve their well-being by setting goals, cultivating positive emotions, etc., etc. If you're interested, you can go to funforwellness.com, or if you want to read some of our work, you can have a look at the Laughing Guide to Well-being, the Laughing Guide to Change and to a Better Life. These are 3 books I co-authored with my wife, where we combine science with humor to improve your health and wellness. So now that we've explored individual actions, what can workplace actions look like? And here at the University of Miami, we set out to have a culture by design, as opposed to a culture by default. And we created deliberately a culture where everyone feels valued and everyone has an opportunity to add value. We call this a culture of belonging. And we conducted some research at the University of Miami with our employees, where we discovered that the more our employees feel that they matter, they feel valued, and they have an opportunity to add value, the more they feel engaged, the more they feel included in the workplace. And as a result, you can see the purple arrows and the yellow arrows going from engagement and inclusiveness to overall well-being, social well-being, physical well-being. So there is really a lot of evidence that when you feel that you matter, you feel more engaged and your well-being goes up. So here at the University of Miami, we made a lot of progress, and in 2017, Forbes ranked our university as the #1 employer in the education sector in the country. Now, what about changing entire organizations? How do you go about doing that? So we follow the work of John Kotter, where he says, if you want to change something about an organization, first of all, you have to create a sense of urgency. And you have to build the guiding team, just like the coalition has done. And you have to have a compelling vision that will energize people. You have to be in constant communication with your stakeholders, and you have to empower actions that will deliver short-term wins. But if you are a leader of a coalition or an organization, what can you do? We developed in this book, Promoting Well-Being, a set of skills, particular skills that leaders can use in order to move organizations forward. And we call it the I value it skills. You have to be an inclusive host, you have to be a visionary, and you have to build on your people's strengths. We call this an asset seeker. You have to be a good listener, and you have to find solutions that work for your particular context. So we can become an inclusive host, a visionary, by asking 3 simple questions. What can we do at the affective, behavioral, and cognitive level? So what you feel, what you do, and what you think. So how do you engage people in the organization, emotionally, behavioral, and cognitively, in the process of promoting change and well-being? So if you want to be an inclusive host, you have to think, how can I create a safe environment for people in my work to express their views and emotions? How do I create psychological safety? What can you actually do behaviorally? You can structure time and space where safe and fun dialogue can take place. Cognitively, what can you do? You can promote sharing of personal narratives where people feel safe to share. If you want to be a visionary, you have to make the vision come alive and foster ownership throughout the organization. And if you want to be an asset seeker, make sure you recognize and affirm people's strengths so that they have an opportunity to add value and feel valued. If you want to be a good listener, make sure your people have a chance to feel heard. Give them opportunities to speak where their opinions matter. So let me conclude by saying that it's really important to identify what culture do we have. So do I work in a place that it's a me workplace, where everyone feels that I have the right to feel valued so that I may be happy? Okay, well, that's important to feel happy at work, but it's even more important to create a we workplace. That's a place where we all have the right and responsibility to feel valued and add value so that we may all experience wellness and fairness at work. So if you are interested in these ideas, I invite you to have a look at the book Mr. Odell was mentioning earlier, How People Matter, Why It Affects Health, Happiness, Love, Work, and Society. So let me conclude by saying that fairness is crucial in wellness. The more we experience fairness, the more we feel valued and seen and appreciated, the higher our level of wellness. So that's my take-home message. There is no wellness without fairness. Let's create workplaces and communities where everyone feels valued and everyone feels worthy of respect. The more we do that, the higher our collective and individual well-being. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. For that insightful presentation. Now we're going to move forward to, a big part of this program. Please join us for the Florida Worksite Wellness Award ceremony presentation. Everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Florida Worksite Wellness Awards. My name is Edmund Odell, and I am the chair of the Marketing and Membership Committee of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade. Today, I will be MC for the Florida Worksite Wellness Awards ceremony. As shared earlier, this is the first time the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade annual event has merged with the Florida Worksite Wellness Awards. We hope that you all have been enjoying yourselves so far. Later in the event today, we will also recognize the work of the consortium members and committees. Now, before we begin to recognize Florida businesses that have demonstrated workplace wellness programs and whose employees have achieved positive health outcomes, let me first introduce you to Dr. Essenia Bialta, the Administrator and Health Officer of the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County, to share a warm, welcoming message with you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Odell, for that introduction. It is such a great pleasure to be here with you all today to celebrate all the Florida businesses that have exemplified worksite wellness programs and whose employees have accomplished such positive outcomes, especially over this past very difficult year. The Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade is committed to protecting, promoting, and improving the health of all residents and visitors through integrated state, county, and community efforts. Today, we support this event because we strongly believe that employers play an essential role in promoting a healthy lifestyle and helping us achieve our vision of becoming the healthiest state in the nation. With most adults spending most of their waking hours at work, worksite wellness programs are crucial in providing needed resources to working adults to help improve their overall health outcomes. Now, I will turn it over to our Worksite Wellness Committee Chair and Vice Chair to get us started and share a warm welcome message with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bialta. Welcome again to the Consortium for Healthier Miami-Dade's 2021 Florida Worksite Wellness Awards. My name is Jeannie Seidel, and I am the Vice Chair of the Worksite Wellness Committee of the Consortium of a Healthier Miami-Dade. The consortium is comprised of 7 committees focused on key health areas. Of the 7 committees, the Worksite Wellness Committee focuses on promoting healthy lifestyles in the workplace, sharing resources on best practices, encouraging policy, system, environmental changes, and creating partnerships among the diverse businesses within Miami-Dade County. The committee hosts the Florida Worksite Wellness Awards to honor businesses within the comprehensive wellness programs that have demonstrated positive health outcomes. The Worksite Wellness Committee would like to thank our partners who helped make this event possible. Our key sponsors are West Kendall Baptist Hospital and Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. Today, we support this event because we strongly believe that employers play a key role in promoting a healthy lifestyle and in helping us achieve our goal in becoming the healthiest state in the nation. With most adults spending most of their waking hours at work, worksite wellness programs are crucial in providing needy resources to working adults to help improve their overall health outcomes. Today, we highlight those that exemplify work sites that went above and beyond this year with promoting worksite wellness. Now we turn to Dr. Odell to get us started with the awards.
Now is the time that we've all been waiting for, the 2021 Florida Worksite Wellness Awards presentation. This year, an award will be given to one employer in each of the 3 employer categories: small employer, mid-sized employer, and large employer. The Florida Worksite Wellness Awards nomination form and judging process were carefully developed based on best practices in worksite wellness and has been validated by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Applications are scored using a weighted scoring criterion, and the winner within each of the 3 award categories is calculated as having the highest cumulative score in that category. This year in total, we have 10 nominees. We would like to take this time to thank our judges for their time and commitment in judging this year's award nominations. This year's judges were Florence Greer, faculty member at Florida International University, Islata Soto, president and CEO of Ideas, Inc., Nicole Marriott, president and CEO of the Health Council of South Florida, and Christina Brito, associate director of the United Way of Miami-Dade. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you. Now let's begin our awards presentation. Once a winner has been announced for each category, we ask representatives of the organization to please come to the stage to accept your award. Presenting employee awards today, I would like to call to the stage the executive board co-chairs of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, Leonie Perez from Nicholas Children's Hospital, and Christina Brito with the United Way of Miami-Dade.
The small employer category consists of employers with up to 500 employees. The following companies were nominees in the small employer category: the Gehring Group Bentech, City of Doral, City of Hallandale Beach, and Keys Energy Services. And the winner of the Small Employer 2021 Florida Worksite Wellness Awards is the Gehring Group Bentech for outstanding efforts to promote wellness and improve the quality of life of your employees.
We'd very much like to thank the committee and for the consortium for recognizing us at Gehring Group and Bentech for this great award. As a company that does this or provides wellness consulting services to our clients, nothing's more important than being able to bring this home to our own team members. And I know I speak for Joelle, the rest of our wellness committee, Sarah, and everybody in our company when I say we're very happy with our results the last several years. We focused really heavily on prevention. So I think that's one of the parts of our program that makes it so great. But most importantly, I want to thank our CEO, Kurt Gehring, our COO, Kate Grangard, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to do this program. I'd like to thank Joelle, our senior wellness coordinator, as well as Sarah, who wasn't here today, and our wellness committee, but most of all, our team members, because everybody at Gehring Group and Bentech is what has made this a success. So thank you very much for this great honor. We're very humbled and very appreciative of it. Thank you.
The Midsize Employer category consists of employers with 500 to 1,000 employees. The nominee in the Midsize Employer category is presented to Trustbridge Incorporated for outstanding efforts to promote wellness and improve the quality of life of your employees.
Thank you all very much. This has truly been a team effort. I want to thank the consortium. On behalf of Trustbridge, I'd like to thank Aetna for promoting and supporting worksite wellness. I couldn't do this without my wellness team. They were absolutely awesome. And also our Trustbridge family of 1,200 employees that helped make this possible for us. Worksite wellness is always a very difficult concept, especially when you have 16 different locations off of over 2 of the largest counties in the state, and we're working 24/7, 365 days a year When you add to that the COVID pandemic, it was an incredible challenge this year. We knew more than ever that this was a year to shine. And we tell our TrustBridge family that you can't take care of others if you do not take care of yourself. Thank you for this wonderful recognition, and we've challenged ourselves to do even better next year and kick it up another notch. Thank you so much.
For the large employer category, with over 1,000 employees, the nominees are SBA Communications, the School Board of Broward County in Florida, CVS Health, Bank United, and Miami-Dade County. And the winner of the Large Employer 2021 Florida Worksite Wellness Awards is presented to Bank United for outstanding efforts to promote wellness and improve the quality of life of your employees.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jeanette Martin. I am the Vice President and Employee Wellness Program Manager for Bank United. Bank United is headquartered in Miami Lakes, Florida, and we are honored to be receiving the Worksite Wellness Committee Award this year for Outstanding Wellness Program in Miami-Dade County. It is an honor and a privilege, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank not only our executive leadership at Bank United, but also the Florida Department of Health and the Worksite Wellness Committee for recognizing our efforts. Thank you.
We would like to congratulate all the recipients for their outstanding work and commitment to improving the health and well-being of their employees. On behalf of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, we want to say thank you for joining us to recognize and celebrate the great work that is being achieved through Worksite Wellness. The collective power of our community partners and leadership is necessary to help move us forward. Only by working together can we make a difference. We also want to share that we will be mailing to our nominees a nomination certificate. Thank you, and we hope to see you all again next year. Okay, welcome back. Wonderful. Congratulations again to everyone. Our second keynote speaker is Dr. Marisa Levine. She is Professor of Public Health Practice at the University of South Florida, USF, the USF College of Public Health, COPH, and collaborating faculty for the Department of Family Medicine at the USF Orsini College of Medicine in Tampa, Florida. Her primary focus is on sustainable and equitable population health improvement. Dr. Levine directs the USF Center for Leadership in Public Health Practice at COPH, where she teaches a positive strength-based systems thinking approach to leading in complex contexts. Dr. Levine recently completed 16 years of state government service, culminating in being appointed as the Virginia State Health Commissioner and agency head for the Virginia Department of Health, that's VDH, from 2014 to 2018. Dr. Levine previously held leadership positions at local health departments for VDH from 2002 until 2009, and then VDH Deputy Commissioner positions from 2009 to 2014. During that time, Dr. Levine was involved in the state's response to the H1N1 pandemic. As commissioner, Dr. Levine led the effort to create an action framework for population health improvement called Virginia's Plan for Wellbeing, and also led significant public health emergency preparedness and response activities as the state's ESF lead. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Levine has been a public health advisor at local, state, and national levels, as well as a frequent media guest expert. Dr. Levine is a retired family physician with 16 years of medical practice experience, who also received a Master's of Public Health degree from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She received her MD from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, New York, and completed family practice residency training at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Without further ado, here's Dr. Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. Thank you for that very kind introduction. What an honor and what a pleasure to be back here with you again this year. And you can see I've adapted my hair as I've learned over the course of this year how to flow with change. So what I'd like to do this year is talk to you about leading community and creating the conditions for equitable health and well-being in the era of COVID-19. And I have to say it's also an honor to follow Dr. Polentensky because his well-being message is really powerful and one that I will continue to share, but it gets even more complicated when you start talking about at the consortium or at the community level. So I'd like to build on what I talked about last year, which was focused on leading self in these crazy and complex times, and build on that incredible foundation that you have as a consortium to, with such strong assets, with incredible relationships and involvement of your own community, an amazing foundation that I think you can build on. And you'll see through this that there are many common themes from what you've heard, but there's great opportunity to advance and move forward despite the craziness of the times. For those of you who weren't here with me last year in my talk, I summarized my leading self actions, and I won't read them to you. But I do want to emphasize this idea at the end here of inspiring hope for each and every one of us, because it's been, now that we're well into our second year of the pandemic, it's really a time where we need to find our own and then inspire hope among others. So over the course of this keynote, what I'd like to emphasize is for all of us to keep an open mind for the opportunities that present to co-create a shared vision for the future, one that will be, I hope, focused on collective well-being. And we want to foster a collaboration and conversations using insights from seeing the larger system, if you will. That's systems thinking. And then continuing to reflect and support the development of those relationships that you heard Dr. Polentensky talk about, those generative relationships where we're all better off. We have to balance the advocacy and inquiry because we have to learn as we go. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is create the conditions that allow the future to emerge from the incredible collective intelligence and wisdom that you all bring and the rest of greater Miami-Dade. To keep equitable well-being and prosperity as those overarching goals. And I'd like to just mention, in the words of Malcolm Gladwell, many of you know him as the author of The Tipping Point or Outliers, just an incredible storyteller. I won't tell this story as well as he did, but I think there's an incredible message here to start with. Malcolm related a story about his family, and he focused on his father, who he described as a Caucasian Englishman with a large head, who was a brilliant mathematician and was a professor in university. They lived in Canada, but outside the city, and their neighbors included a Mennonite community, which was interesting because the story relates to when Malcolm was a young boy and remembers a time when his father reached out to help. And he described his father, in addition, as this person who always wore a shirt and tie no matter where he did and what he was doing. So they got in their very nice vehicle and they drove to this Mennonite farm and got out, and his father went up to the Mennonite folks and offered his help. And Malcolm reflects that he probably would have been too self-conscious to do that, unlike his dad, but his dad didn't seem to think about those things. And he was really impressed that his dad just saw people that needed help and that he could offer the help. And he was even more amazed at the Mennonite community, who didn't judge his father in any way, shape, or form, but just accepted him because he was just somebody who was willing to help. And then Malcolm went on to say, it really made a lot of sense because his mother was a brown-skinned Jamaican woman who his father had married, and his father didn't really seem to think about all the ramifications of that at the time. He just saw somebody, another person that he loved. And Malcolm closes this great story by saying that in a time where we're so obsessed with difference, it was amazing to see how his father, in a good way, was just oblivious to difference. I think that's something that we all can aspire to, is how can we be in that good way, oblivious to difference, and just see one another for the equal people that we are. And it's particularly tough now because we live in this VUCA world. Many of you know this term. It originated from the military, but it's so relevant now because times are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and they're really challenging and requiring those things you see there. And I think to some degree, we want to be able to think about some of the things that are happening in our community, particularly in the United States, where our fierce individual freedom and individualism seems to be rising to the surface to some way excluding the collective action that we need for a pandemic, for example, among other things. And you have to ask the question, why is that happening? And I think the VUCA world makes us feel less safe and less connected in many ways. And so there's a defensiveness that happens. But I think we need to understand that better because we have to figure out how to work collectively to help people get to a different place where they can be more connected. And I suspect that it's somewhat of a defense mechanism to go that route. And perhaps what we need to do is to reach out in a very human way and connect and show the kind of caring and compassion that's needed to bring people into the fold, if you will. But again, these are really challenging times, and it requires, I think, for the consortium to be very clear about what this context is we're in and how we need to operate differently depending upon the complex. So I'm offering you a number of tools today to think about, just as Dr. Pilantensky offered for the workplace. These are tools that I think are relevant at the community level. This happens to be the Cynefin framework. It's a Welsh word that means habitat, developed by David Snowden, a really important systems thinker. And he reminds us that particularly when we're in a time that's so complex or a context that's complex, that we have to operate differently. It's not like when things are simple or when problems are straightforward, where we can just take what we know and work on the implementation. We have the evidence in terms of what we need to do, but we get into trouble when we try to take that same approach in a complex arena, because you know as well as I do, especially as it relates to health inequities and leading toward health equity, that the playbook hasn't been written for Miami-Dade. We're going to have to learn and adapt as we go. And in a complex environment, that means we try things, we probe, see how it works, get good feedback, timely nature, and then we respond. And as David Snowden reminds us, there are really only three things that we have any control over in these complex contexts. Is we can set boundaries, as you've done. You are a consortium for Miami-Dade. That's a boundary of sorts. You're operating in Miami-Dade. You can probe, means you can try things, almost like having lots of experiments, but we need good feedback with those probes because we want to augment the things that work, that are showing some positive results. So boundaries, probes, and amplification of those things that work are really the three things to focus on. That said, there's a problem that we have to relate to, and it gets back to custom. Dr. Pilantensky was helping you try to create customs, but so many of our customs, our habits are already ingrained. And I think Mark Twain said it well here, that the less there is to justify a custom, the harder it is to get rid of it. And so this is the essence of why system change or system evolution is so difficult. We are creatures of culture, and they are ingrained in our systems. So we have to work at it. In addition, this ancient proverb also reminds us that although we honor what we know, what lies in the sphere of our knowledge, we don't realize often how dependent we are on what lies beyond it. And this is why taking a systems or a more holistic view of our world is important, because a core capability for people trying to lead this type of system evolution for something like health equity in a community is you have to be able to see the larger system. And you also, I think it gets a lot to mindset. And I'll harp on mindset quite a bit. This is now at the individual and the collective level. Jonas Salk said it's possible to create an epidemic of health. So I ask you all, do you believe individually and as a consortium that you can do this, a growth mindset, if you will? You can create an epidemic of collective well-being in Miami-Dade. You and I know that if you don't believe that, it's much less likely to happen. So challenging those assumptions is really critical. And I ask that because this leads into the whole political will arena. You probably know the UN has had a resolution for a number of years now, and they re-emphasize the importance of this, dedicated on universal health coverage, a really important step toward health equity. And yet we're not there in this country yet. And they reaffirm that health is a precondition for and an outcome, an indicator of the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development, and are critical to the implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. So we have this belief, if you will, that this is important, but we haven't embraced it to the level where it has become the political will. So something to think about. So for the remainder of our time with you, I'm going to focus on these messages. I'll give you some of the tools mentioned at the end, but I just want to say right up front, nothing will change unless we challenge our individual and collective mindsets, really the root of it. I'll come back to this. And that we have to take this inclusive approach that you've done here in Miami-Dade to create a shared vision, and I think using a well-being focus, not just at the organizational level, that's critical, but at the larger community level. I ask you to think more holistically, be upstream, as many say. It's consistent with the proverb I shared. And then as leaders, we all have to embrace change because we live in a very dynamic world. We've seen just in this past 2 years, a tremendous pace of change, but that's the constant. That's what we have to get comfortable with and help others and bring them along. There are tools we can use, and I'll show you some of them, and they're developing, it's still evolving, but they help us better visualize this complexity and the dynamism of the world and our context, if you will. So I'll show you some of those, and I'll tell you there's nothing magical about the tools, but they do produce some practical benefits, and they affect how people think, how we think, and how we see the world. And that's really the first key step of moving someplace better. So there is evidence, though. Maybe the playbook isn't written, but fortunately, the National Academy of Medicine in 2017 wrote this report, Communities in Action, Pathways of Health Equity, and identified some of the key commonalities from communities that have done good work in terms of health equity. So I wanted to share those. Many of you are probably aware, but I've summarized them here. And you can see as we go through this, you've done a lot of this work, which is why you have such a great foundation to build off of. You've got a multi-sector collaboration. Could you enhance it perhaps? You have health equity as a shared vision of value. How could you make that stronger? Community capacity to shape outcomes. And the capacity they talk about is the capacity within your consortium and your community, and also capacity connections to important people and organizations outside of your community that influence your outcomes. And then look at your community, and are your leaders charismatic? Do you have community support, and do you have the resources you need? These are all qualities of communities that have been able to do a better job toward health equity. And then don't forget, this is the more holistic view, that there are larger conditions in all of those arenas that set the stage for change. So the question to all of you is, how can you better align your efforts with those larger conditions, or even influence those conditions if possible? But the National Academy goes further. There are 6 additional success factors to consider. And I think this is important for you. I know you probably have done this to a large degree, but you have to manage the size of your partnership, and most importantly, its diversity. Is it fully representative? Are all those voices present in some way, shape, or form? Are the people who are actually impacted part of the consortium in terms of their voice being heard? Leadership is critical. We need leaders at all levels, from the grassroots, and we need them to connect in a collective leadership model but we also need people at the grassroots to be able to lead people making policy decisions, for example. This is not easy work and it goes over time. So can you maintain your focus? My sense is you're doing that well, but keep that in mind. Are you managing conflict? And at the root of conflict is there trust among your consortium members to the point where your conflict isn't personal? It's more about conflict of ideas, because it's the conversation, the tough conversations about conflict of ideas that gets you to a next level. Recognize, because this is dynamic and occurs over time, there are going to be cycles. So how do you manage those ups and downs, if you will? And like all consortiums, you have limited resources. You have a patchwork of those resources. You have to continually deploy and redeploy. How are you handling that? And all the challenges that come with it. So this is the evidence. I wanted to build on this and say there's a framework that you might even consider, if you have not already, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which I've summarized here. But these were designed at the national and international level. But what's really interesting is there are a number of communities now around the globe who have tailored these to the local level. And health is such a critical part of this, and well-being, collective health and well-being, that you might even consider using this framework for your work moving forward. In addition, I have to talk about the work of Peter Senge, the fifth discipline, the learning organization concept, which many of you are familiar with. How can your consortium and the larger community become that kind of learning entity? How do we continually learn and adapt, given the fact that we're in this complex context, so that we can do the best job possible to not only hear the voices, but through real-time feedback and connection, quality relationships, adapt to whatever comes at us. And remember, it's because our communities are not intentionally designed to promote health equity. In fact, they might have been designed to do exactly the opposite with some intention. So the second core capability for leaders in this space is to really promote reflection, the learning part of it, and the kind of conversation that we call generative, because all parties advance from that, and move, think about this, move from the reactive problem-solving focus. That's what we're all really good at, but move from that to one of co-creating the desired future, that shared vision that you, through your diverse involvement, will create. Now, because we're good at problem solving, we often focus on what Joanne Dong here calls the inherent problems of the parts of the system, problems of an organization, of a person. And we miss the fact that things like health inequity and health equity are emergent problems. They're problems of the system as a whole. And if health inequity, and just to say, an emergent problem or the emergent behavior as a system is something that can't be predicted by just more deeply understanding the parts and the parts connection. It's really the result of how the system is structured, designed, and the processes inherent in it. So our communities have emerged inequitably with respect to health and many other things. So if health inequity is an emergent property of our current community system, know that health equity could be an emergent property of a future system if we consider what we need to do to get there. And one of the things I want you to know about with these complex systems like a community is that often these emergent behaviors are the result of what we call very simple rules. So it made me stop and think, what would be the simple rules that would result in an inequitable, a health inequitable community? And they could be something as simple as this: a belief, this is the mindset piece, that people are not all equal, which leads to an action that we treat people differently based on that belief, and gets reinforced through feedback where we, through the power differentials, we keep the outcomes of those beliefs and actions invisible or less visible to the larger public. So think about those simple rules, because the simple rules for health equity may be something like this. The belief that all people are equal, that the action would be we would treat each person as they wish to be treated, the so-called platinum rule, which goes even beyond the golden rule. And then this all gets reinforced with real-time feedback by distributing power evenly through our communities. 3 simple rules, not necessarily easy to change to, but if you think about it that way, it gives us some hope. There's another way to think about it, is to experience it differently and to begin to diagram our communities differently, knowing they're complex, knowing there's a lot of interaction, and knowing it's dynamic. So I'm going to share some of the work of David Stroh, who I'll talk more about, who looks toward social issues and system change. And I've taken his pattern called Success to the Successful. And quite frankly, there are always patterns in systems. So there are patterns in our communities. And this is a very simple portrayal of a pattern that leads to inequities. And it could be health inequities. So because our systems are complex and dynamic, we need other ways of looking at it. And here on the left, we've got a population of people who are well off, they're successful. And so because they're successful, they get more. It's kind of what we call the law of increasing return. That means more resource, whatever it is, health or health care, is allocated to that group on the left. And the R in the middle is a reinforcing loop. Basically, it builds and it builds, but it builds at the expense of the people on the right who are starting off either less successful or less powerful and get less allocation in whatever shape or form. And so what happens is they get a reinforcement on the right here of lesser and lesser and lesser. And if we don't do anything about this, we get a divergence of outcomes. Simply stated here, could be health inequity in our community. So we have to first recognize this, and then we have to realize that there's got to be some moderation through various kinds of redistributions. And we also probably need to ask ourselves the question of how would we answer this question, why should people care? Because without caring, we're not going to do the things that we need to do. So this is one way of doing it. This is what a systems thinking approach could help. There's another pattern, though, that I wanted to mention to you because you're a consortium of many organizations, and that's the pattern of accidental adversaries, where 2 parties or multiple parties trying to originally work toward the same goal actually end up undermining one another. And so I've used a COVID example here. This is more complicated, and I don't expect you to see all the ins and outs, but just know that the outer circle is the reinforcing loop of a good response to COVID very early on, where on the left, the politicians, and on the right, public health people were working very well together. There was a clarity of what we needed to do, even when we didn't have a clarity of what the disease was. And at the bottom, we had a coherent set of effective public health actions. And if we had just stayed on that circle, we would in all likelihood have seen a much better outcome from this pandemic. But instead, what happened was, on the one hand, the politicians got to the point where they didn't see this was necessarily going to be good for them in some way, shape, or form. So they implemented a fix. That fix undermined the public health actions. So the public health community implemented another fix, which undermined the politicians. And lo and behold, we were kind of off to the races, if you will, creating these inside reinforcing loops and balancing loops that undermine the larger issue. And so when this happens unintentionally, it's really important that we step back and realize it, and then emphasize the fact that this was unintentional, and both parties need support to help realize that their actions are actually undermining the larger whole, and there's a better way of doing it. And we also have to make sure we don't do something called shifting the burden, where we try these quick fixes, but we do it at the expense of the true underlying problem. And I think the best example for that is in the homeless arena, where for many years, the quick fix was the emergency housing. And by putting all of our resources there, we undermined the real solution, which was permanent housing. And it wasn't until we got to the housing first concept that we got ourselves away from this shifting the burden pattern. So as you start seeing the world differently and using these tools, you realize that there may be leverage points for change. And so for all of you as leaders, those leverage points may be in the places where you find things that are reinforcing the status quo. What's keeping us where we are? And when you find that, and it might be policies, it might be power differentials, then you can either do things that disrupt that reinforcing force, or you can find other ways to balance it. And basically you have options here, meaning that there are leverage points in many places. So that's the real opportunity when you start to take there. And this is the thinking that we need to get better. I mean, this is one of Einstein's quotes, but the other was that you can't expect the thinking that got us into these problems to get us out of it. So I'm not just talking about a more holistic thinking and a collective effort here, but also moving from the focus on the problem to a focus on understanding the system that causes that problem. And a realization too, that if we're trying to evolve the system, that evolution is no longer, this is the words of Fritjof Capra, another great systems thinker, there's no longer a competitive struggle. And that's kind of what we've taken out of Darwinism, that we are fighting one another. But evolution, true evolution, is, he calls it a cooperative dance in which creativity and constant emergence of novelty are the driving force. So I implore you to think about how could we evolve the system through some kind of cooperative dance. And to get there, it requires us to learn differently. Our traditional way of learning is the single loop on the right here in this slide, where we, through whatever thinking, goals, values, we look at an issue and we put some kind of action in place. We look at the results. If it's not what we want, we tweak it, and we basically just stay in the same loop. We don't get to the point where we, through double loop learning, go back and challenge our underlying assumptions of why we did what we did. And there's an even deeper one of challenging our own thinking. But a critical part, I think, for all of you is to create the conditions where you can challenge these assumptions, these beliefs, and do a better form of learning. And in addition, to come at it from a positive, strength-based approach. Appreciative inquiry is one way to do that. I'd encourage you as a group to perhaps consider something like an appreciative inquiry summit, where you bring your diverse voices together, focus on your strengths and your foundation, this great foundation you've built, and then together create that vision of a shared future. I would ask you to also follow Buckminster Fuller here. Never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So if you remember from last year, I talked about John Kania from Collective Impact, and his critical message was that true transformative change doesn't happen without challenging and changing our mental model. So if you follow Buckminster Fuller, what we really need to do is create a new mental model, which will be a great driver moving forward. So I'm just going to focus and channel Dr. Prelotensky on well-being. I think this is the framework that makes the most sense because it brings us to a place of equity. It's more human-centered, holistic, and focuses on relationships. I really encourage you to go there. I won't define well-being. You've heard about it. I agree completely in what he said. And then I will say that there is a framework for moving forward. This is where David Stroh comes in. 4 stages for changing and leading system change. And you've already done a lot of work in stage 1, which is building the foundation. But I will harp a little bit on this in the next slide. There's still more work to do there. But once you have that strong foundation, you can focus on the current reality and understanding more about the system and why we are where we are today. Embrace the history. Don't be scared of it, because the history will give you clues to why what happened. It will also be a way, I think, of healing to some degree and engaging. And once you're there, you can come together and do that visioning, stage 3. And now between stage 2 and stage 3, you see the gap. where we are versus where we want to be, this is your opportunity for bridging the gap and brainstorming. Now, I've just taken this and made a much busier slide, but I wanted to emphasize that that foundational work at the bottom in the blue has to be about clarity of purpose, individual and collective, and based on sound and agreed upon principles such as morality, obviously equity. I think positivity is an important one, having the right mindset, trust, and a focus on relationships, for example. And that the process going from current reality to vision is an iterative one. You don't stop, it just keeps going. And you have to keep that in mind because that's where the hard work is. So one final tool here for you to consider. Many of you know the Iceberg Model. What we see on the surface is just that, the tip of the iceberg. But our patterns of behavior, our system structures, and our mental models are the things that drive us to those outcomes. So we can use this Iceberg Model when we get together and look at the current system. What is Miami-Dade now? And you can highlight each of these aspects. What do we see now? What are the patterns underlying it? What are the structures that bring about those patterns? And most importantly, what are the mental models? That can help us do that stage 2. And then when we do stage 3, we can do the same thing for the future to which we aspire. And I think this just helps people clarify, makes very clear not only where we are now, but where we want to go and what are those components. So this is one tool you might want to consider, but realize this is really hard work. So I'll close here with this leadership challenge of the ages, because I think COVID and all the inequities that have come to the surface, they were there, but maybe even more visible, I hope, are putting us at an opportune time. But as Anu Sharma from the Presencing Institute says, we have to be clear on what's holding us back. And he says fear, greed, ignorance are the things that hold us back. So to transform and move forward, can we turn fear into courage, greed into compassion, and ignorance into inquiry? And he says, keep in mind, these are his words, you cannot change a system unless you transform consciousness, as I've been saying all along. You cannot transform consciousness unless you make a system see and sense itself. Let's make it visible. And you cannot do these things at scale, like at a large community level, unless you create new forms of deep learning structures like the consortium. So please bring your collective compassion, strength to bear. Find your courage and intentionality, and design Miami-Dade for equity, health equity, well-being equity, and equity at all. Be well, stay safe, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Dr. Levine, thank you so much for your presentation and sharing the importance of how leading a community with an equitable health lens is important to achieving optimal health. Now is the time in our ceremony for special recognition for our outstanding consortium members. We will now recognize individual committee members who have exemplified leadership this year, who have been innovative ways to engage and educate the community. We're proud to take this time to shine the spotlight on all the great work. We will now announce this year's recipients of the Consortium Committee Awards. The Children's Issue Committee is proud to recognize Essenia Mendez as this year's outstanding member. From her first meeting, she has brought her passion and enthusiasm for community work to everything that she does for the consortium. Always willing to go the extra mile, she has brought resources and community health education to thousands of community members with her smile and warm heart. This year, she assisted the committee with providing resources for the Bounty of Health Drive food distribution event, and coordinated with the Aunt Bertha workshop to expand this resource tool. The Elder Issues Committee is proud to recognize Michael Pearson as this year's outstanding member. While working with the Alzheimer's Association, Michael joined Elder Issues in early 2016. July 2017 to March 2018, he served as vice chair prior to becoming the chair. As a tireless advocate for older adults and caregivers, he has a deep understanding of the needs of the population, working collaboratively with local and state government representatives, community partners, and stakeholder organizations in Miami-Dade. He has a strong an efficient leader in realizing the committee's action plan while raising awareness for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. He suggested measures for the CHIP that impact the health and well-being of older adults. He led the chronic disease subcommittee, which planned a very successful type 2 diabetes event in April 2018. In early 2020, he helped transition to virtual meetings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In June of 2020, he went to work at Alliance for Aging, and while there, he coordinated the annual conference held virtually, bringing the aging services community together in a meaningful and engaging way. We're very grateful to Michael M. Pearson for his commitment and dedication. The Health and the Built Environment Committee would like to recognize Daniel Padilla as this year's outstanding member. Daniel Padilla is a trained urban planner with a concentration in urban and environmental design. He serves as the Florida Conservation Partnerships Manager at the Ocean Conservancy. He manages partnerships with city and county governments to protect marine environments and work with partners to bridge the gap between the natural marine environment and the built human environments under the Shores Forward initiative. He has been an outstanding committee member through this unique insight and connections through the county. He is always willing to help support other committee members and helps to engage others in the consortium's goals. The Health Promotion and Disease Prevention Committee would like to recognize Lacey Boyles as this year's outstanding member. Lacey Boyles of the American Heart Association joined the Health Promotion and Disease Prevention Committee in early 2020. Since becoming a member, she has been an active participant of the committee, attending more than 50 of the monthly meetings. She has been a great addition to the committee meetings, participating in the committee's work plan discussion and building updates and providing updates on the latest resources available through the American Heart Association. In November of 2020, she contributed to the success of the consortium's Bounty of Health drive through food distribution with an in-kind donation and health resources. In addition, she has supported the consortium's Healthy Happens Here webinar series by presenting on Harvest Healthy Habits on behalf of the American Heart Association. The Tobacco-Free Work Group recognized Dr. Zinzi Bailey as this year's outstanding member. The Tobacco-Free Work Group is recognizing Dr. Zinzi Bailey from the University of Miami's Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center for her unyielding commitment and enthusiasm to create a tobacco-free Miami-Dade. Zinzi serves as the chair of the Policy and Surveillance Subcommittee and works tirelessly to advocate for tobacco control policy change. As a former student working against tobacco member, Dr. Bailey is a longtime champion of tobacco prevention and works to shed light on cancer health disparities caused by tobacco and nicotine in the community. With great appreciation, we recognize Dr. Zinzi Bailey. The Worksite Wellness Committee recognizes Amber Graham as this year's outstanding member. Amber has been a consistent member of the Worksite Wellness Committee. She has attended most meetings and has given much of her time for our objectives and progress forward. Amber is always willing to give her professional advice. She never wavers and volunteers often for our subcommittees. Amber continues. It's a pleasure to work with, and our committee could not have continued with service. This now concludes the consortium's award presentation. I would now like to introduce to you our executive co-chairs of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, Leone Perez from Nicholas Children's Hospital, and Dr. Christina Brito with the United Way of Miami-Dade.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odell. What a wonderful opportunity for us to affirm some of our leaders and community champions. It has been a pleasure hosting you this morning, and we are humbled by your support and filled with gratitude for your commitment and dedication. I hope you are energized and prepared to continue this important work. We look forward to welcoming you into our monthly meetings and continue to grow strong partnerships to improve the health of our community.
also want to take this time to say a very large thank you to our presenters and to all of our attendees. We had an amazing ceremony today, and I hope that each and all of you have learned a few things that you can start to use to make a change within your organization, within your committee, and in your daily life. The collective power of our community partners and leadership is necessary to help us move forward. Only by working together we can make a difference. Additionally, we invite all of you to participate in some capacity with our Consortium for Healthier Miami-Dade to address the health priorities of our community. Please reach out to us using the information listed on this slide if you're interested in learning more and partnering with us on the important work of reducing health inequities in our community by creating, supporting, and strengthening sustainable policies, systems, and environments. Finally, as a friendly reminder, we ask you to please take a few moments after this event to share with us your thoughts and feedback on this topic by completing our brief evaluation survey. Once again, we thank you and have a great rest of your day. Be safe, everyone.